Hope all is well. Wanted to share something once again that caught my attention, and I couldn't help but share a thought. And it has to do with Bitcoin. And so, as I mentioned a couple years ago now, when it was initially announced that they were going to have futures trading on Bitcoin as an additional financial product, I was very concerned because, as we've learned with the precious metals or commodities in general, whenever futures are offered, therefore, it provides a way for the big money people to manipulate the price by creating digital or paper illusions of the actual product itself. And so I got a couple articles I want to share with you, but I was just sitting here thumbing through just some thoughts about Bitcoin and how initially it was positioned as a backdoor out of the system with the very properties of being decentralized and all that good stuff like that. You know, the properties of money in a different way. And so that's still kind of what exists with the actual Bitcoins and as the rest of coins itself. But when you have products now being spun off, and more recently, just the announcement last week of a cash-settled Bitcoin futures it's going to be done in Singapore, but eventually be offered worldwide. It just got me to thinking about how an attempt before this year is over with is to create more products that can control the price. And then, you know, what's kind of interesting is that it's being offered as a way to offer more people a way to get involved without actually being exposed to the risk. And so that distorts the whole idea of Bitcoin itself, because once again, if it was announced or given to the world as a way out of a dying system in the form of the dollar coming to an end and people wanting to do different things with their currency and getting out through Bitcoin and as well as other altcoins and whatnot, with all these future announcements and now soon to be cash settlement of futures contracts, all it does is open the door for more manipulation of that product or that item itself, which is not good for the overall community, in my opinion. Because once again, if you're getting into futures, therefore, you don't really have to have the actual product or the item. And then what makes it even worse is the fact that Bitcoin is not like an actual tangible item that can actually be delivered. And so it's one of the things where it's still a digital asset on a ledger or on a wallet or blockchain somewhere. And it's not something physical like in other future commodities, wheat, corn, gold, silver, all that stuff like that. And so came across an article I want to share with you, and then also just going back in history, remembering how in 2017, it was before, I think at the beginning of 2017, the Bitcoin price was around 1,000 or whatever, but by the end of 2017, it went up to 16,000, or actually 19,000 in December. And I remember talking about that then and how CBOE came out with their futures, and it was a rush to get futures out there by different institutions that were all paper settled. Nothing was actually the Bitcoin itself settled until 2019 September with Bakkt, and that BAKKT. When that was announced, it's one of the things where my initial thought was, okay, they're settling in the actual Bitcoin. I can't even say physical. They're settling in the actual Bitcoins. How long will that last? Because once again, the difference between Bitcoin and gold and silver, that gold and silver is continuously mined, and so there can be somewhat of a larger quantity or a larger supply of it. But when it comes to Bitcoin, there's only 21 million built into the protocol, of which there's only 16, 17 million that's readily available, with the remaining 2-3 million or whatever to be done in the next 10, 20, 30 years. So that's going to make it very difficult for them to offer actual backed or actual deliverable futures, because once again, they don't control or possess any of them. So they're in need of them constantly. Therefore, it won't really be beneficial for the institution. So I knew it was just going to be a matter of time before the words cash settlement comes out. And here we are, we have it right now. So here's an article I pulled up that I thought I would just share, because this was one of the articles I talked about 2 years ago that had me wondering exactly where this heading. And so this is actually December the 10th on a Sunday of 2017. It says Bitcoin makes debut on futures market. And so this happened to be very timely that they were in a rush to get these futures out and to spin off products and whatnot in regards to the Bitcoin rally that took place in 2017. So this article here talks about, you know, the future contract that expires in January rose from 15,000 up to 16,000 in its first hour of trading on the Chicago Boards of Options Exchange. And then you scroll down here, it just talks more about the idea of the need to get this product out there so that more people outside the community can get involved. And so this what's caught my eye here. It says futures are a type of contract in which a buyer and seller agree on a price for a particular item to be delivered on a certain date in the future, hence the name futures. Futures are available for nearly every type of security, but are most famously used in commodities such as wheat, soy, gold, oil, and cocoa. And so futures in of themselves are the very products that have been used to manipulate the price and keep gold and silver where they're at now. So we always hear about them dumping, a large numbers of futures contracts onto the market, slamming the price down. And so when I saw this, I'm thinking like, this is not good for a movement that's designed to give people an option out of the system, because once again, it's all about controlling the system itself. So we got more futures talk being mentioned, and that's not good. And so I just was very concerned when I saw this, and I just knew it was just a matter of time before they had to go to cash settlement, because in 2017, this was just about betting against the price. It had nothing to do with delivering anything. It was more so, as it says in this article, a hedge against the price itself, so that it can protect people and opportunity. It can protect people from losing, but reward people when it goes up, is basically what this futures here is about. So I'll include this article here if you want to go back in time and read more for yourself. So this is the most recent article, came out last week, but it just caught my attention today. Just thumbing through the news, and somebody shared this, and so I appreciate those that shared this. But it says Bakkt plans to roll out cash-settled Bitcoin futures contract. A lot of people in the cryptocurrency community was favorable of Bakkt announcing a futures contract opportunity, anticipating that it's going to open the door for institutional investors to get in, which eventually it will. But once again, as I mentioned, futures are designed to control the price, not necessarily be a blessing to those that are holding on to the actual Bitcoins themselves. But when I saw this, it really confirmed what I was thinking about cash settlement. So once again, if futures contracts are offered as products for those that are not really wanting to take the risk necessarily by holding the physical or the digital asset on their actual wallets themselves, but they want exposure to it by holding on to products such as this, here we go, cash settlement. Once again, who actually hold Bitcoin are really looking for cash settlement of these type of products, unless you're a trader or a speculator in this particular industry, i.e. you're not a part of the original Bitcoin movement where you actually want the coins themselves as a way of hedging against current national currency risk. So here's an article here giving more details about just the announcement of Bitcoin future settlements with cash itself. And so it talks about here, it says, as previously reported, Bakkt's much anticipated contracts, the first of their kind to be physically settled in Bitcoin. So once again, physically settled in Bitcoin is kind of like, it's interesting in itself because it's not a physical product, but you know what it means. It says first went live this September. So literally, was it September, October, November? So literally 3 months ago, they announced this physically settled asset here. And now I talk about numerous commentators have considered the physical delivered Bitcoin futures trading, which gives traders direct exposure to the asset, represents a leap forward for the institutional acceptance of the coin. It says, notwithstanding this anticipation, the platform's underwhelming volumes in the first week following its launch were unfavorable compared to the fiat-settled BTC futures on the CME, and that's 2017. So here's the difference between a contract that's already settled in 2017, the CME, which I was just referring to, CBOE, those two different ones. They were settled in cash, and so it's a little bit more favorable because it wasn't nothing actually involved in form of a Bitcoin. It was just called Bitcoins, settlements or whatever. Now we have the actual physical ones done in September, where they actually have to have the coins themselves. And as it says here, it wasn't as favorable. And I would imagine it wasn't as favorable because in order to actually have this type of product and to offer it as a direct settled product of the product itself, you have to actually have a lot of Bitcoins in your possession. And so it wasn't as favorable, or it didn't do as well as they probably anticipated, because once again, majority of the coins exist outside of their control. So it's hard to manipulate the actual physical Bitcoins themselves or the actual digital ones in your possession. So it wasn't too favorable. So now what other way to make it more favorable is now you have to offer cash settlement similar to what was offered in 2017, which did really, really well because it was basically a gambling ring. It was basically a bet against the price. So here we have just an idea that it says volume on Bakkt have since seen a sizable uptick. However, yesterday, 224 Bakkt Bitcoin monthly contracts were traded, according to the tracking data compiled by the Twitter account Bakkt Volume Bot. Just with that being shared there, as you can see, 2 years ago, Bitcoin was offered as a product, to get people involved. I wasn't excited about it then because, once again, the cryptocurrency movement, even of itself, whether you're for it or against it, it was literally positioned to be a way out of a dying system, which is currently underway now. And of course, I think regardless of whatever they're trying to spin off product-wise, it still will have a viable result, just because you actually have to have the coin themselves in order to actually say you're a part of the community. And the future products are just ways to get people excited about the institutional side of things, which, once again, if there's just paper products or digital products without the actual asset themselves, then again, you're ultimately gambling. So the risk falls on you. But yeah, once again, when I saw the cash settle from Bakkt being launched now or coming up, it just makes it more questionable for me, to where if you're going to be involved in our community, the best thing to do is to make sure you personally actually have the actual coin themselves in your possession, and have your private keys, as the whole hold your keys movement was this earlier this year, and probably I think they're doing another one soon. But other than that, I thought I would just share a quick thought. Just sitting by the pool, thought I would just do that. But other than that, leave a comment down below. What are your thoughts on this futures aspects? Is it something that you play around with yourself, or you prefer to hold actual things themselves? So other than that, leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed this, definitely give it a thumbs up, share this information, or just share the articles, either one, so people can realize what's being done against them, because it's not really designed for them, unless you're a person that's involved in trading and you are able to profit from all this future stuff that's going on. But other than that, love to hear your thoughts.